Today I'm going to teach you all the basics that you need to know about After Effects in under 15 minutes. Let's go. All right, so once you get into After Effects, the first thing you're gonna see is this page. This is the home page where all your projects are gonna be and where you can obviously create new projects. We're gonna hit new project. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna hit new composition. Make sure to name this. I'm calling this my first edit, and then I can go ahead and adjust the width, height, and frame rate. This is basically like the settings for the project, how big you want the file to be, if you want it to be 4K, 1080, or 24 frames per second, or 60 frames per second. You can also adjust the duration. I'm gonna make my composition exactly 5 seconds long. Now, contrary to Premiere Pro, for those of you who use Premiere Pro, the timeline is infinitely long. After Effects, it's set to a set duration, whatever you set it to be. So I'm setting it 5 seconds. And then the background color, I'm gonna set to black. First and foremost, always make sure to save your project by going to File and hit Save. Or you can hit Command S. I've personally always had a bad history with After Effects not auto-saving and just lost countless hours of work. So always make sure you save your projects. Now we're inside of After Effects. In the top left-hand corner, you're gonna have your toolbar. The first tool is your selection tool. This obviously lets you select stuff, hence the name. The second is the hand tool, and this basically allows you to scroll around your composition. By the way, I'm zooming out by scrolling in and out on my mouse, or I can come over here and hit sit or change the percentage to like 12% to zoom out. You can also use this magnifying glass to do the exact same thing. These three tools are grayed out because these are only for 3D objects, which we'll get to in just a bit. The rotation and pan tool I really don't use. They're kind of unnecessary. Next is the rectangle tool. This basically allows you to draw rectangles, and you can change the color by clicking over here where it says fill and then just set it whatever color you want it to be. Next after that is the pen tool, which also allows you to create more shapes. So you can just draw and create any shapes like that and then change the color just like the rectangle tool. Next is the text tool, which we're actually going to be using right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and type some text. Paintbrush tool is a little bit advanced. We're honestly not going to be going over that. Also with the clone stamp and eraser tool. But lastly, after that is the roto brush tool, which we will be going over today. Those three right there, you honestly don't really need to know just yet. Below your toolbar is your project library. This is basically where you can import your video files. I'm going to go ahead and import some files by just simply dragging and dropping. Now let's get to editing. I'm going to drag my video clip into my timeline right here. I'm going to select the shape layer and delete that right now. We honestly don't need that yet. So now we have our video clip in our composition. And we have some text that we created earlier. If your video clip has some audio and you want that to turn off, you can just go ahead and select this speaker icon. Also right next to that is the visibility icons. Basically, if you click on that eye, it'll make whatever layer you're clicking on invisible, so you can't see it. After Effects is a layer-based editing program, just like Photoshop and Premiere Pro. So basically every layer on top of another layer is gonna be visible, and anything you put behind it is gonna be invisible. Pretty simple. Now I know you guys want to get to the fun stuff. You didn't learn After Effects over Premiere to just do the same stuff. So we're going to create some really cool effects in this video, but just bear with me. I got to teach you the basics. In your timeline right here, if you click on any of your layers, you're going to see a little arrow icon to the left. If you click on that arrow, it's going to open up the properties for that layer. Let's go ahead and hit the arrow for the transform right here. And basically what these properties are going to allow you to do are move things around, like the position, the scale, the opacity, rotation, and more. Now there's two main reasons that people really decide to use After Effects. One is motion graphics and the other is visual effects. I'm going to teach you a very universal, basic, must-know concept for motion graphics. If you want to do anything motion graphics in After Effects, this is the magical world of keyframing. Now what keyframing basically allows you to do is it's basically a timestamp telling After Effects the position and location of any given asset in the timeline. Now basically what this means, let's go ahead and create a keyframe by clicking this little time icon on our position. I'm at the very beginning of my clip. Now let's say if I go a couple frames in and I decide I want to move this text actually like up, and so I'm going to move it up right here by just adjusting that property, and now you can see it's automatically created a new keyframe on my timeline. And if I play that out, we got some nice text animation just like that. And honestly, this is the backbone of anything motion graphic related. You can do the exact same for any other property. Let's say I want the opacity to start off at 0 and then like fade in. I could do that same thing, and this applies for everything else, the rotation, the scale, so on. Now one thing you might notice is that the animation of this text is very linear. It looks very robotic, and it stops and moves and then it goes, and it's just not very natural. In real life, there's like velocity, objects speed up and then they slow down gradually, and After Effects actually lets you do that. So what you have to do is basically select those keyframes that you animated, you right click it, you go to keyframe assistant and you click easy ease, and basically what this allows you to do is create a a very nice gradual motion. Another important thing about motion graphics is motion blur. All you got to do is click on these little 3 circle icons right here on any object, and you can see it created some nice motion blur on our text. Motion blur, no motion blur. Motion blur, no motion blur. And actually, if we drag our keyframes closer together and the object moves faster, there is more motion blur. And you can see the object is like really, really blurry. I think that's really cool that After Effects lets you do that. Now, of course, After Effects is a really, really complex program. You're not gonna be able to learn all of it within under 15 minutes. And when I need to learn a really big skill that's gonna take a lot of time, I like to go to online platforms, particularly Skillshare, who I'm proud to announce is the sponsor of today's video. Skillshare is an online learning community, which basically allows you to learn a multitude of skills, hence the name, from let's say graphic design, video editing, motion graphics, all the way to cooking or arts and crafts and stuff like that. I personally love using Skillshare. I started using it in the pandemic when we were basically all trapped in and we couldn't go take classes in real life. And honestly, I found Skillshare incredibly helpful. Of course, they have a bunch of classes on After Effects and Premiere Pro, and I actually have my own course, which is a beginner's guide to directing music videos, which I do go over Premiere Pro and After Effects in. So if you want to check that out, it's linked below in the description. Honestly, I had a lot of fun making that course, and I was really happy when Skillshare reached out to me because I was like, oh, what do you know? I have a course on Skillshare. I 100% agree that creativity is a skill that you need to constantly practice, just like going to the gym to work out. So I really see Skillshare as that gym. And one of the cool things about Skillshare is that it's actually structured like a real class. It has like discussions, lectures, assignments, and even collaborative group projects that members can work on. It's honestly really fun, and most classes even give you a certificate of completion that you can put on your resumes and any other future job applications, so you can get your skills up, so that you can get your bag up. And actually, the first 500 people to use the link below in the description will get a free 1-month trial of Skillshare completely for free on me, on the house. So you can get started today. You can check out our beginner's guide to creating music videos with no budget for After Effects and Premiere Pro, so you can learn a ton more on both these programs. Let's get back to After Effects though. Okay, now that we got keyframing down, let's get into the actual fun stuff. I'm starting off with rotoscoping off the bat. Most of these beginner tutorials don't even teach rotoscoping, which I don't even know why. It's like super useful. It's also super easy, honestly. What rotoscoping is basically like removing your subject from any background, even if you didn't shoot on a green screen. So it's super helpful. All you got to do to rotoscope is you basically double click on your video clip, and what's going to do is going to take you into a new composition layer. So you're going to see right here on your timeline, there's like composition, which is the main edit. This is the final effect. And then this rotoscope composition layer right here, which is where you're going to be doing all your rotoscoping work. So just very important. Make sure you know about that. So what you're going to do to rotoscope is go over here to the rotoscope icon, the roto brush with this little person and the brush, click on it, and then you're going to drag and color over your subject. But oh no, now you got this little yellow error that says frame rate mismatch, footage misaligns with field. I'm including this in here because this error came up on my screen and no tutorial taught me how to fix this. It's really, really easy. All you got to do is go over here to composition. You're going to hit composition settings, and then just basically change that frame rate to exactly what the frame rate is saying right here in this yellow error. So mine says 24, and the actual clip that I used was 23.976. And if you don't know why it's like that, it's just the 23.976 is the industry standard. I don't know. Don't ask me. It's weird. Now what we're going to do is we can actually rotoscope our subject. So I can color over my subject, and it'll create a green like area of selection. And then I can hold Alt or Option if you're on PC to deselect any areas. So you can see it actually selected all the sky, which I don't want. So I'm just holding Alt and Option to deselect all these areas that I don't want. Okay, bingo. Now I've selected my entire subject. You can see there's a pink outline of whatever subject is selected. Now it's time to let AI do the rest. Now the newer version of Adobe's Premiere Pro uses a lot more AI to create better rotoscoping masks, and it's super easy because before you'd have to do this for each frame. Now I have to just go, now all I do is I go to my timeline and I simply just drag ahead the timeline and just watch AI do the rest. It's honestly pretty impressive. And if it messes up like over here, I just go ahead and hold Option or Alt and then just deselect that area and correct it and just keep it moving on. Go ahead and drag your playhead to the end of your clip. And once you're at the end of your clip, go ahead and hit this freeze button, and this will basically lock in all your rotoscoping so that it doesn't have to re-render it every time. Just saves time. Now our layer is frozen. We can't edit anything else. Let's go back to our main composition right here, and you can see, ta-da, our subject is completely removed from our layer. It's honestly pretty cool. And the coolest thing about this is that we can actually add our subject on top of other layers. So like the text, Now the text can be behind our subject, and we got this really cool behind the subject text effect. If you still want the background in view, you can go ahead and select the layer, hit Command D to duplicate that layer, place one layer behind your text, and then go to that layer right here in the properties panel and just select the roto brush effect and delete it. And ta-da, now the text is behind our subject and we still got the background in view. Really cool. Rotoscoping is super important. Just make sure you know how to do it. It's one of my favorite effects. Now it's my favorite part of the tutorial. It's rapid fire effects. We're gonna be going over the most useful effects in After Effects. Let's go. To find your effects, go to the effects and preset panel right here on the right of After Effects. You click it and it's going to open this little search bar, and now you can search for your effects. First up is turbulent displace. A little bit of a controversial take. Turbulent displace is really cool because you basically just drag it and drop it to whatever layer you're editing, and when you increase the amount, it creates just like a really warpy like effect. I don't know, I think it's really fun. Next up is the key light effect. For the key light effect, I'm gonna be dragging in this other video clip right here, which is of some 3D floating cars, and I'm just going to apply the key light effect. The key light effect basically allows you to remove green screen. Once you apply it, you're gonna see it pop up in your effects panel on the left. Click the screen color and then just select the color that you're trying to key out. For us, it's green. I click on the green and now you can see our cars are 3D and they're in our scene. And honestly, things are looking pretty cool. Next up is drop shadow. Drop shadow I'm also gonna apply to our car layer. This basically allows you to create shadows. If I go ahead and increase the distance, you can see we got a bunch of shadows of our cars right here, and I can actually just increase the softness so we can't see what's going on, increase that distance a little bit more, and now we have some shadows applied to our scene. Next up is a fun one. This one is colorama. I'm gonna apply this one to our video bottom layer right here, and this one basically creates like a heat map looking effect for anything in our video. And you can basically go ahead, hit the drop down on colorama on the effects, and hit the drop down on the input phase, and if you adjust the phase shift, you can basically change like the hue or temperature of anything in your scene. Last but not least is glow. This one obviously makes anything glow. I'm gonna apply this to our text right here, and you can see, ta-da, it made it glow. But to make it even better, we can increase the glow radius, and now it's really glowing. And you can also adjust the threshold and intensity to make it brighter or darker. Really cool, fun effect, super useful. And yeah, those are our rapid fire effects. All right, guys, we've pretty much gone over everything important, but we're only 90% of the way there. The last most important thing you need to know about After Effects is 3D tracking. Now, most beginner tutorials don't even dare teach you this, but don't worry, I'm a rebel. I'm gonna teach you how to use 3D tracking because I believe in you. I think you guys are smart enough. So basically, 3D tracker, you go over here to your right-hand panel, click on the tracker, and make sure you're selected on your original video layer. It's this one right here that we're tracking. What you're gonna do is you're going to hit track camera. And now I'm actually going to be using the visibility that we mentioned earlier just so that we can free up our workspace. Because I'm only focused on this bottom layer, I'm going to turn off the visibility of everything else that we're not editing. And ta-da, I didn't delete it, but it's still there. And now once it's done loading, you're going to see a bunch of what I like to call the 3D flowers. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the colorama effect by clicking this effects icon right here. This basically keeps the effect on, but it just turns the visibility of it off. Now what these 3D flowers do is basically tracks your scene in 3D space. How do we use this though? What I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go ahead and click this button that says create camera. You don't even need to actually touch anything with these 3D flowers. Just leave it alone for now. And now what I can do is I can actually turn my text layer back on and watch this. This is where the cool stuff happens. I'm gonna click this 3D icon next to my text, turning it into a 3D object, and boom, now our text is tracked in 3D space. I'm actually just gonna go ahead and delete these keyframes because I just wanna show you guys that this text is now in 3D space, which is super cool. Now I can turn on my rotoscope layer and all the other effects once again and turn my colorama back on. And there you have it, a very simple basic tutorial on After Effects within under 15 minutes. Hopefully, if you want to get this exact floating car video file, you can check out the link in the description. I created a bunch of pre-animated templates of 3D floating objects that you can apply to your scene just like this. It's super easy. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you found something useful. And if you also want to learn how to use Premiere Pro in under 15 minutes, then you can check out this video linked right here.